Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here. Facebook.com/WeAreRogueMatter, YouTube.com/RogueMatter. We're also on Twitch at WeAreRogueMatter and Twitter, Rogue_Matter. We take this fine video that myself and co-host Hassan Godwin put together and turn it into an audio file that will wow your ears. See, I've been working on this. And it's available on all major podcasting apps. Join the movement. Go Rogue, roguematter.com. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always joined by my co-host in crime, the Lord of the Lateness himself. But he's not really late because he's here. He just was late to us getting here.
Mr. Late to the Godwin. Production meeting.
You know, you're that's like an inside joke tagline. See, folks.
It's too late now. It's too late to do anything about it now.
Well, no, you can change it right now. Go ahead. Change it to something exciting.
It's fine. I deserve to wear the monocle of shame.
Right. Is it a monocle? Is that what it's called? The monocle?
Yes.
Like the Planet Peanut monocle. Is that? We managed to interview a very successful actress. She's been in a number of action films opposite some of the legends in movie history, including Bruce Willis, before he ended up having to retire due to medical reasons. Steven Segal, Jason Momoa. She was also in a film with Danny Trejo from Machete fame as well too. Yulia Klass, which I got her name right, which was even better. I didn't butcher her name. So we've got an interview with her tonight.
You got machete wrong. No.
What?
It's machete.
Machete?
Yeah, not machete.
Like sachet? Like I have to say it with an accent of some kind?
It's machete.
All right, I'm going to go with what it looks like on screen and say I did okay on that one. Possibly.
Hey, you call out your own wins. That's the way it's done in America.
I will vigorously defend my grammatically correct pronunciation of it. We've also got Stranger Things 4. I got a lot to talk about with that. So if you haven't seen it yet, Erin hasn't seen it yet. Our producer extraordinaire. So she's got an hour and a half to go. So she's going to literally produce that segment with her ears closed. But we'll still try not to spoil it for her, but we will probably still end up spoiling it for her. We'll be nice as much as we can. But believe you me, it is a spoiler-filled Stranger Things 4 wrap-up. But first, Rogue Matter presents this week. Rogue Matter presents Data Decoded. That's like two things. You get two versions of me, which you can't go wrong. You get myself here, obviously, which is every Wednesday, but then you get myself and Data Guru.
Double feature Dolce.
Yeah, I know. Deanna McFadder. She is the founder of Nachi. Nachi is a data specialist organization. They work with films. Actually, they work with a number of industries to use data to tell a story. It's really she's a qualified expert in the field of data science. And this episode we've got is we decode the human interface and robotics concept behind Iron Man. Iron Man is a 2008 superhero film, which we all know, based in the MCU. It is actually the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Following his escape from captivity by a terrorist group, world-famous industrialist and master engineer Tony Stark builds a mechanized suit of armor and becomes the Superman Iron Man. Is it possible? How far away are we from Iron Man? And she gives her insightful take on just where we are. So if you like that, go check out roguematter.com. Everything on there is free. I keep repeating this. You can check us out on Spotify as well, too, since it's a podcast. Rogue Matter, basically, so our tagline these days is very exciting, right? Our tagline is, if comics were also podcasts, ebooks, and videos. We're not just a comic book company. We're doing like everything, but it's all in this like comic book geek space. I didn't come up with that, but I fully support it.
Yeah, it's pretty tight.
Mainly because they signed my checks, so I'm like, woohoo! I'll do anything for money.
Pretty much what I was thinking, but I decided not to say it out loud. I was being discreet. but now it's all blown up. So I guess yeah, money.
Let me
Thanks
ask
for
you a
the money.
question. Let me ask you a question, and this is an easy one. What
This is always where we go wrong when you start you go off script and start asking me random questions.
Put yourself back into 2008 Hassan Godwin.
Oh boy.
You just walked out of Iron Man. What was your immediate reaction walking out of that theater?
That felt like a real movie. I'm sure people don't remember this, but prior to Iron Man and the entire MCU launch, comic book movies were like, hey, look, you're lucky you got this in live action. So just, suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah.
A lot of the backstory, a lot of the information that was readily available in the comic books was discarded by executives who thought they knew better. And so it was hit or miss with most of those movies. So I remember feeling that with the opening montage that explained Tony Stark and Obadiah Stane and all the stuff with Stark Industries being arms dealers basically. I'm like, wow, this actually, first of all, this is a lot from the comic book. And this is actually very comprehensive. Like, it's actually setting us up really well.
Yeah.
And there's really great imagery, and and then of course Jeff Bridges and Robert Downey Jr. Who just carried that first movie across the finish line. I mean, how could you say anything else about at least the acting, the caliber of the actors?
Sure.
So when I walked out of the theater, I was like, wow, that felt like a real movie, like a genuine movie.
Couple of things, a couple of notes for the kiddies out there. Robert Downey Jr., while being a successful actor, had many a run-in with the law prior to Iron Man, and so his career had gone up and down. Right? I mean, it's fair to say his career was thriving in the '80s. It hit a real big snag. So as much as you might sit there 15 years later and be like, or 14 years later and say like, well, it's a no-brainer. Robert Downey Jr., what a great actor and so amazing. Blah blah blah. No, that was a gamble. That was a gamble and a risk.
See, here's the thing. I agree with you 100%, and that was definitely a scuttlebutt. I learned my lesson from Michael Keaton. I never ever again question a casting choice after Michael Keaton as Batman. I was like, okay, and then after that was reiterated with Heath Ledger,
yes,
as a Joker. So it's like, all right, look, stop asking questions. If these people win the role, they're obviously the right people for the role.
Yep.
And Robert Downey Jr., though he was coming out of his weirdness, I think he had just done Sherlock Holmes just before that. So he was people had already embraced him as recovered. I don't think.
No, I think Sherlock Holmes was after. Let me see here. Let's do a little Googling here.
Either it was right before or right after.
And I'm going to say year, so we get it right. Do my searching good. No, 2009. Yes, it was the year. It was basically Sherlock Holmes came after a year later, because I do remember this, because you're now all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's Robert Downey Jr. Like that's he's a go-to.
Right. That's fair.
Thanks to Iron Man.
But he had done a couple of other movies before.
Oh yeah.
Before these two blockbuster movies where he had kind of returned to form.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So, but I never also Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. He looked like Tony Stark.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, that was kind of a no-brainer.
Did I just typed in by mistake, I typed in discography instead of filmography, and it turned out that he has a 2004 album.
Of course, why wouldn't you? Why would the only people that don't have an album is AGO? But anyway,
it's coming. It's coming there.
Yeah,
it's coming there. We're almost there.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually. Yeah, he is. Wow. Okay, didn't know that. I don't know if I wanted to know that, but that's very exciting. Yes,
a lot of things we didn't want to know before recording this show. It's just one of the hazards of the job.
I remember my initial impressions of that though was that the CGI for Iron Man was what impressed me just as much as the actual storyline, because I do agree with you. It was like, wow, this is the Iron Man origin story. That's really great. But I mean, you had Spider-Man before that. to where, and you had Batman before that, to where you figure, okay, an origin story, they tend to stick to the origin story pretty good. But I remember watching Iron Man, and I'm like, wow, that's actually
Green Lantern.
Oh well,
I mean, there are misfires.
That came after, though. That came after. Again, as you said, comic book movies.
I didn't say before. I just said there.
There's definitely misfires. I'm not disagreeing with you. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. There are definitely misfires. But to me, I almost, there were so few comic book movies out at that point, going into 2008. I mean, you had the Batman tree. You had the Christopher Nolan Batman Begins. You didn't have The Dark Knight yet, which was a pretty faithful adaptation of not Batman Year One. Even in fact, it wasn't a faithful adaptation of Year One. It was
Batman Begins wasn't at all.
No, but it was Ra's al Ghul. I mean, there was they mined that from the comics pretty okay. But the Spider-Man movies that came out, they did a nice job of actually sticking to, for the most part, the origin story.
Those were the Batman. Those were the comic book movies of that day. And Spider-Man 2, I think, Spider-Man 1 definitely, but Spider-Man 2, I think, was the pinnacle at the time.
Yes.
Of comic book, of what comic book movies could actually do. Like they were, it was a blockbuster.
Right.
So that's probably what launched all of this, all the MCU and everything else that came after it.
Yeah. But I remember walking out of there thinking, my God, they made like that. There was a second Matrix movie that came out where he was fighting, all those Agent Smiths, and it just looked like cheesy CGI.
Yeah,
like
it looked terrible.
It just wasn't very convincing.
Yeah.
And so,
even though you kind of, at that time, because at that time things were less rigid at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you knew it wasn't real anyway, right? And a lot of times you would see something that's like, that's not it's not perfectly real, but that looks okay. That's interesting. That's an interesting thing. But that, especially that fight with all those Agent Smiths, was so egregious.
Yes.
That it was like, it killed the immersion.
Right.
It's just like, wow, this is just not good.
But
you can't even watch that now. You can't even watch that these days without like having a stroke.
But that's something to me that was so impressive, was just how Iron Man actually, the Iron Man costume, suit, whatever you want to call it. I was like, wow, I couldn't even tell, is it CGI or is it like an actual life-sized Iron Man suit? Like, I don't know. And to this day, I don't know, and I don't want to know. I am so convinced Iron Man is real, and that's all you can ask for, walking out of a comic book movie, that it looked real. It looked like, okay, that it doesn't suspend my disbelief now when I read a comic book and go, well, that could never really happen in movies. And that's what Iron Man did to me. That suit itself was the cherry on top of just what an amazing, start to the MCU. So
yeah, I agree with you.
If you want to learn more about that Iron Man suit and whether or not that Iron Man suit could actually happen, go check out roguematter.com. When we come back next, we're talking Stranger Things 4. Yours truly made it through all 55 hours of those 2 episodes that they managed to put together, and we will discuss it next. Welcome back to the Rogue Wav podcast. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it every Wednesday night. And tonight, what else is there to talk about, right? I think it just crossed the 1 billion hour mark, I believe. Let me get the exact quote. Yeah, Stranger Things season 4 hits the 1 billion hours in viewership. It is the only U.S. Created show to have done that on Netflix. So congratulations. But yeah, we are reacting to. So if you haven't seen it yet, Aaron, our producer, naughty, should have Should have finished it.
Oh, who are you to talk, dude?
Well,
I
I
come
actually
on, man.
finished it.
Your track record. All right, yeah, but I mean, you gotta give some
I'll say this: there's been many a time where it has been a struggle to finish stuff, and so if I don't in time when we talk about it and it gets spoiled for me, like I just say whatever, it's fine. There are some shows though where it's like, no, I need to finish them because I don't want to get them spoiled. And so and I think Stranger Things is up there. So I definitely, you know, I can proudly plant my flag for tonight's show, and that I got through it. Now, that being said, I definitely thought it was way too long, those last 2 episodes, like unnecessarily long. You could have, it was like Batman it was like The Batman long. Like that last episode was 2.5 hours. Easily could have been 2 hours. Easily. You could have shaved off. In fact, I did shave off, I think, in a good half hour of just them walking to the destination. Like they were like, there's like scenes where like they're in the house, you know, or Nancy's in the house, whatever, and she's walking to the next part of the room. I just went, whoop, 10 seconds. Whoop, 10 seconds. Whoop, okay, she's there. It's like a little unnecessarily long. That being said, yeah, no, that's it actually. I think it was just very long. What were your initial reactions to it? I know you were pretty high on these.
Do you mean the show overall, the season overall, or just the second part? Or
Well, I think you kind of have to, right? I mean, it's really, I don't know. It's a good question. How do you want to break it down? Or how do you think we should break it down? Because to me, I think it's just one season, right? Just do the whole season. Because even though it's split up into 2 parts, that is essentially a marketing tactic from Netflix. It has
that and also that they hadn't finished the last 2 episodes. By the time the first, they had, according to what I've read,
okay,
they've they finished some of the CGI the day before the second part debuted. So they were working all the way up to all the way down to the wire. So
wow,
yeah. So that was according to the Duffer Brothers, that was an act of necessity by splitting them up, because COVID just ruined everything for everybody.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, I mean, they could have just postponed it too. I mean, you know, until they were ready. So, but I like it. I applaud the gutsiness on their part to come out with it.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody who doesn't, you know, who you know, again, spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you know, part 2 where we left part 1, we just learned who Vecna was. I thought that was really well done. They tied that, you know, together nicely in the first part where, you know, you're very good at this, I think, or at least you claim to be. I can't, obviously, I'm not in a room with you when you're watching these things, but so I choose to believe you because I think you're an honest person. You're very good at usually like picking out like, oh, I knew that guy was the bad guy the whole time. And I thought they did a nice job of disguising the Henry, you know, Vecna connection, you know, one connection throughout the first, you know, part of the season, to where when it was revealed at the, you know, right before, you know, the season ended, I was like, oh, okay. I knew he was connected to something in some way, right? He wasn't just an orderly that's going to help 11. There was something more to him. But I didn't think he was the big bad when all was, you know, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, were you pleasantly surprised, or did you peg that like the first episode or something?
I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think he was an orderly though. That's
right.
So whatever my intuitions are, it was like, this guy's not an orderly. I don't know, but I thought he may have been in her head, you know, or just like an imaginary friend or something like that.
Sure.
And then as things went on, you know, it starts to become clear. Like, wait, especially like, okay, there's 2 ways to look at it. There's there's television language, or there's like sequential visual language for you know, for sequential storytelling or you know, celluloid. And then there's Stranger Things language, right? Any new character they introduce is doomed. They're either bad, you know.
Did we talk about it on air, or we talked about it off air? I think we talked about it off air. That right before, it was last week, before Stranger Things 4, the conclusion was going to air. You know, we were saying it's like they never kill the main characters. They always, like, none of the main characters ever end up getting killed. It's always they bring a character in just to kill them off. They do a nice job of doing that. You know, they do a job like Sean Astin in the second season. You're like, I like this guy. Oh, he's dead now. Oh, that sucks. Like they do a nice job of bringing these characters in, making them, likable in some way, shape, or form. Even Max's brother, who in season 3, who passed away. I mean, by the end there was,
I would say
there was
season 3 was Alexei, was the Russian guy they kidnapped.
Oh yeah, that guy too. Yeah, we liked him too. Yeah,
Because
that's
I
right.
didn't care about Billy. I was glad Billy died. I didn't like
Yeah,
Billy.
but you know what? When he died, you felt it. You know what I mean? It wasn't. No, you didn't feel it.
Felt a thing. No,
you didn't feel a thing for him.
No.
I felt bad for Max. I thought that was.
I felt bad. That's bad for Max, and of course that has residuals that
Correct.
rippled all the way into season 4. But you can get rid of Billy. I didn't care about Billy. I don't. It's just the same thing as I didn't care about Matthew Modine. I didn't.
Well, yeah, you wanted Matthew Modine to go though, finally. So that was what happened.
I wanted
two,
Billy
obviously.
to go. That's kind of how I parsed it. Like
But that's I guess my point. They do a great job of bringing these characters in so that when they do die, there is an impact, even if it's good. I'm glad he's gone. There, it's not indifference. There's definitely some shows where people die and you're like, oh, all right, I guess that guy's dead now.
Yeah.
And you're like, whatever. When a death does happen, it is generally well set up and well executed to the point where you feel the necessary emotions that they're trying to get you to feel.
I fully agree. I totally
now, in this particular case, Aaron, cover your ears. You can cover your ears. Okay, you could show videos if you want. You could show clips if you want. But no, we don't actually. I didn't even put the
don't
clips
show
on,
clips. So. That'll make it worse for her.
That will make it worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
The death in question was Eddie Munson, and I got to tell you, I laughed hysterically when he died because it was exactly our conversation we were having last week. It was like, basically, I think we pegged it. We're like, if it's going to be an expected death, then it's got to be Eddie. I think we both said that last week because he's he's this season's whatever. And and it happened. And I remember reading Friday morning. I get my news feed of different pop culture articles, so we can call through for the show, and it said like unexpected character deaths. It said multiple deaths.
4.
Let me get the exact.
There are 4 confirmed deaths. I've read articles where it said 4 confirmed deaths or 5 confirmed deaths. So the articles couldn't even decide exactly what the Duffer Brothers confirmed.
Yeah.
In their teasings.
Yeah, I don't have the article up with me, but yeah, it was essentially
income prepared
surprise deaths, and I thought to myself, if there is a surprise death, it would be one of the main characters because it's never one of the main characters. It's always this like.
It's always it's always a mislead or a misdirect to say there's a surprise death or that it's always that way. Because they want you to probe the entire show.
Right.
In anticipation of, and then usually no.
Right.
Not really. I have a different perspective on this apparently because I don't watch shows. Like I don't think the integrity of show, and this is not what you said. So I don't think the integrity of shows lies on whether or not we know the characters are going to live or die.
Yes.
A lot of people are like, "This worthless watching this." Like Obi-Wan, it's worthless watching this because nothing can happen to him. It's like, well, that's not the whole reason I'd be watching, like
right.
Like 90% of the time they wouldn't have killed Obi-Wan in Obi-Wan's show anyway. So that's kind of a non-starter,
They kind of need him for the next they kind of need him for that other movie.
They need him for all
you've already
episodes. Not only that, say like this all took place whenever. If you name the show like Mando, they're not going to kill Din Djarin in his own show. So the idea of like, well, I'm not worried about this because I know he's supposed to be in A New Hope, so I know he survives. So this makes this whole thing stupid. The person who the show is named after is always going to survive for the most part until the last episode.
Right.
All right. So, or there's no show, or the show's over. And then let me just reiterate: if they do kill him in the middle of season 3. That's the last episode. All right. So the complaints have been kind of crazy about like, well, they don't kill enough for the main characters. Again, not something you said, but these are things I've heard. They don't kill enough of the main characters, so the show sucks. Or I know all the characters have plot armor, so the show sucks. Like, look, killing it's all fantasy. We know this. We know there's no
Sure.
upside down that we know of, right? There's no rip in the fabric of time and space or whatever. So if you can suspend your disbelief on that, just get into the story and enjoy it,
Right.
or not enjoy it, or hate it, one or the other. But stop throwing monkey wrenches into your own immersions by giving yourself these ridiculous parameters for whether or not you want to enjoy something in the first place. I think that's kind of stupid. I think saying that any character that has plot armor is stupid.
So I found the article, by the way, from Heroic Hollywood. Stranger Things 4 Volume 2 finale sees some surprising character deaths. Please. Not everyone makes it out alive. They labeled Dr. Martin Brenner as one of them. That's Matthew Modine's character, and I do think he's dead. But did he actually die?
Yeah, he died well enough. So let's just say if they brought him back again, it'd be a groan.
Yeah,
it'd be an eye roll. All
right.
Come on,
because but again, we didn't get the scene where he breathes his last breath.
Those are, thank God, because some of those are done so badly.
Yes.
There's that it actually just kind of takes you right out of it.
Yeah.
It just breaks the show. It's like, it's like, stop it.
This one also labeled Vecna as this article says Vecna is the fourth. Vecna himself met his end, and I don't think he met his end at all. In fact,
no. That's why you don't read those articles.
Yeah, see, that's not
articles. Don't know what to. How is there going to be a fifth season if Vecna's dead?
Yeah.
So
I agree. So this is clearly he's clearly not dead.
Yeah, I don't know. What article are you reading? Who's
that's from Heroic Hollywood?
Huh?
Heroic Hollywood. They're not a very well reputed.
It's a rag. You're reading a rag.
I am. They do a nice job of summarizing things for me, though, and I like that because I like the
because you don't really watch the shows, so they help you out. They're your cliff notes, cheat sheets. That's
what I want. Look, anything to Scrooge McDuck, work smarter, not harder. Eddie Munson. Now let's talk about his death.
Whether it's smarter though.
Let's talk about his death. All right.
All right.
This to me was the only. I laughed when he died because it's prototypical of what they've done in terms of bringing a character and make you like him, and then they kill him.
Ooh,
what's that?
Where'd you whip that word out from?
Prototypical. You like it?
Oh, I like it coming from you. I know what the word means, but it's like not you don't usually dabble in the $50 words. That's all. I'm just saying.
It's July 4th week. Man.
I know you're capable of them. I've heard you speak, off air, but I'm just saying on the show, you don't dabble in the $50 words.
That's true.
You save the money. You save them. You put more money. You put different money on the screen.
Well, that's called setting it up for when you really want to deliver. See, if I did it all the time, then it wouldn't be a big deal. And,
of course.
I would sit there and say his death was a typical horror movie death where I'm sitting there saying, why is he doing this? Like, his choice in the actual, to quote unquote stand up and fight. First of all, is a life lesson for all you kids out there. What happens on TV is not real, and don't do what is on TV. Because yes, I've actually done things in my life where I'm sitting there saying, I've been impacted, and I'm talking about like childhood or whatever, where I'm impacted by what I've watched. And you're in a situation where you've seen a character go through a situation. I can't give you specifics. I just know it. I just know this has happened to me in my life where I'm like, oh, this is the moment where I fight back, or this is the moment where I do something or take a stand. And it never ends up good. It never ends up working out, but that storybook movie, that's why these are called stories, right? But what he ended up doing though.
So wait. So you're saying that the Rogue Wave's position on this is what's not real is not real.
Don't imitate it. don't imitate what you see on TV.
Don't do things that are not real, right? Because they're not real.
Right.
That's the Michael Dolce philosophy.
Right. There's also what? I'll give a romantic example. I think there's definitely been times in my childhood when I grew up and teenage years and whatever where I'm just like, I do what the typical romantic comedy character would do, and it just doesn't work. It never works.
You were the guy outside with the radio.
Yeah, not that bad, but definitely, definitely you're like, this is the time. Don't let it slip through your fingers. Make a move. And then you make a move and they're like, oh, that was really nice of you. I'll see you later. And you're like, oh yeah, that didn't work out the way it's supposed to on TV.
That stuff.
She's supposed to look at me and go, I feel that too.
there's an unwritten understanding or rule in geekdom that we are geeks because we know that these other things are not
Mhm.
real. We dabble in superhero-dom because of the non-realness of it. If you could actually go out in the world and be Superman or whatever rom-com fantasy or
Right.
whatever you
I just wanted to get a date, you know.
yeah, but I mean, you can't use those things as a template, man. That ain't gonna
No,
work.
I know, but
Because
that you know.
most of the people who wrote those things are people who didn't get dates in high
Exactly
school in
right.
the
This is
first place.
their. I know this is their
Yeah,
like wish fulfillment.
so
I know.
don't follow those.
I know.
Don't follow that guide,
No.
please.
Luckily, I learned that lesson in college, or even before then,
Took you to
and
college.
you know,
All right,
probably college.
that's right.
Well, no, in high school I was too scared to even do anything. So that you know, there's a big
Ah,
difference. So
okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
so, but anyway, getting back to Eddie Munson. Eddie Munson, Dustin at least tries to make up for it in my mind when he talks to Eddie's uncle at the end. He's like, he was fighting for this town, and I thought, all right, maybe that's his decision, but he could have easily escaped. They could have just patched the hole up or done something to make sure those bats didn't come into the town.
Well,
Or
no, they were trying to keep the bats off of Steve and the others so that they could kill Vecna. That was the distraction.
no, I get
So
that too, but
So the
then
theory
it
was
really doesn't make sense.
if we run away, the bats are just going to circle back, and they won't be able to kill Vecna. So we gotta go back and keep distracting these bats. It's not
That
that
makes it a
it
little
works.
better.
It's not that it works because it doesn't really work. But it's the gesture. It's the realization that if we run away, we won't be holding up our end of the bargain here.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's how you feel about it is how you feel about it. I'm just saying that was the point.
Okay.
That's what he was
Did you
doing.
think that was pulled off in a way that because to me that it took me out. It was one of those like horror movie cliche kind of things where you're like, character, no, you'll make it out if you just do the smart thing. Just do the smart thing. No, why are you all of a sudden doing the dumb thing? Of course you're gonna die now. That's the way it felt to me.
The reason I don't do these things well is because I have two different heads when. So I'm pretty sure while watching it, I'm like, why? What the hell, dude? You know, save yourself.
Right.
But I think overall, then you start to go into business mode. Like, well, that was well executed. You know, I believe that was. You know, that's the kind of gross aspect of this whole thing of like, you know, becoming an analyst. You know, after you've enjoyed something, and start to analyze whether or not it was pulled off correctly or not. So, like the fact that I thought his death had impact, and then I understood the circumstances behind it, allowed me to decide that it was worthwhile. Whereas I'm sure emotionally I was like, oh come on, you know, don't stop killing these characters off. So
it would have
I
been
don't know.
it would have been a more heroic death if, like, let's say Dustin was in peril, like obvious peril. Like that's the one. That's what I'm saying. There was like you could have pulled that off to a point where, oh my God, well he had to. It was either him or Dustin.
But his story arc is that the statement about the girl who died, that he brought back to his house and watched her die, is that he just ran away after that.
Right.
Like if he had stood there and if he had tried to do something about it, he would have been able to, you know, he might, that was what was haunting him.
Yes.
So if they do a callback to if we run away, if I can make a clean getaway and be safe, aren't I doing the exact same thing that I did before? So now he goes back in. I think.
Oh no, I get the logic of it. I get the logic. I'm saying
I think if Dustin was in trouble and he thought about running away, that would have undone all of the work that he had done to endear the character to you in the first place. Because it's like, of course you help your friend.
Well, again, we're talking about hypotheticals, obviously. So it's possible, yes, but it's also possible that, again, if they'd have done it in a way where
I don't have a problem with how they did it. So I mean, either way, you know.
Yeah, to me,
I get what you're saying.
It just made me scream at the TV.
Well, I mean, one death
that didn't bother me at all was Jason Carver's death. I actually thought that was pretty cool. So he was the leading the charge against Eddie, accusing him of satanic cult. I do pity him though, by the way, because in a way, the way everything was presented to him. He obviously went off the deep end, so I don't pity him in that sense. Getting guns and preparing to actually murder people and things like that. Is obviously that at that point, I do lose the pity, but I do feel for him because he wasn't, at least early on, he wasn't really portrayed as an a-hole. And he had just, his girlfriend who he loved and just didn't know very well, ended up dying, getting murdered horribly. So I kind of sit there going like, all right, that's Bruce Wayne's backstory, like someone he loves got murdered right in front of him, in a horrible fashion. And, so in a way I'm sitting there going like,
backstory.
What's that?
It's almost like every superhero's backstory.
Right. So, I mean, if you're going to condemn, him, he didn't seem to be, and I'll back that up with, he wasn't upset that Lucas took the shot. He wanted the shot, but it didn't work out. And it wasn't like he pulled him aside afterwards, like, hey, that was my shot. He was celebrating with him. So, and to me, I feel like, okay, probably wasn't a bad guy. Didn't handle the circumstances correctly, but obviously was shaken by it. But that being said, toward the end, I thought it was just a cool way to die where the rift opens up and just like burns him in two. I'm like, all right, I like that. That was kind of like, at that point, he was too far gone.
That to me came off as a little bit of Revenge of the Director kind of situation, because it's like, and now he's gonna get his butt kicked. He's gonna be the foil that cost a beloved character their life, right? Theoretically, then he's gonna get his butt kicked in front of everybody, and then we're gonna rip him in half. Yeah, as a director aside, like, and then when he's down, I'm gonna rip him in half. So,
but
he was the Star-Lord. Bullied by Letterman, in his day in high school. I think that was what that was all about.
He was the Star-Lord. You're right, though. He was the Star-Lord of Infinity War, where if he'd have just stuck to the plan, Star-Lord.
Well, he didn't know the plan. In his defense,
I agree. But he was, it's like, oh, if you just realize what they're doing, and wasn't, didn't go Looney Tunes. So,
I don't know about. See, here's the thing about that stuff. I don't know if anything Lucas said would have explained to him why the girl had no eyes, and was just sitting, I don't like, there are certain circumstances in films and TV is like, there's no way you could really.
No, I agree.
You could bring anybody up to speed on that, in time to be, for them not to, quote unquote, excuse the expression, for them not to shit the bed for everybody.
Right.
There's really no way. I mean, if they were there and she wasn't possessed yet, they might have been able to talk him into
actually, witnessing. You know what? I feel like her being possessed, if maybe the better strategy, and this is not like criticizing the show. So I want to separate what I'm about to say is I'm actually saying, like, what if this really happened in real life? What would have been, what would scenario A be? Scenario A is he ends up getting ripped in half because he tried to convince him that there was no cult. But meanwhile, the better solution. So this is a life lesson, really. So if this ever happens, now we know what to do. You have a crazed psychopath after you who doesn't have the inside knowledge, but thinks something. He should have fed him that information and said, yes, we were part of a cult, but now we're trying to stop it. And this is the only way. And look, she's possessed. So clearly it's working. We have to go through with this.
I'm pretty sure, I'm certain the argument against that, even though that's sound advice, I think you should take that advice, kids. But the argument against that would be like, Lucas was just not in the headspace to
no, again, I'm not talking about criticizing.
Be counterintuitive,
I'm saying you and me right now. I'm Lucas, and you're Max, and your glasses are possessed, and a crazed psychopath coming after us. We're trying to close this. We're trying to kill this big bad. I'm saying what I would have to do then to convince him is to say, yes, we were in a cult, and we did unleash an evil spirit, and now Hassan is possessed. And so now, in order to save him and their whole town, we're trying to stop it. This is the only way.
And then he would have been like, I know how to stop it. And he would have shot Max. So, it, especially if you say something like, the whole town is in jeopardy, then he would have been like, oh, I know how to fix this. Because that's pretty much what his, he was the, he was the hammer, and all my problems look like nails type
Yeah.
of character.
Yeah.
So I got this gun. I know how to handle this particular situation. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, thankfully.
I don't think we
So
should
I
be in
can't
that
pull
situation.
from my own experience to illuminate the situation.
I would
for us
love it
here
if we
on the
don't
show.
end up in that situation. But if we
I
do,
would love it if we didn't. I
if we
honestly
do,
would.
we
I'm not
know
an
which
adventurous
way to
type.
go.
I don't want to be dealing with dark wizards from the underground, or I really don't. I could do without that in my entire life.
True.
My whole life.
True.
I could go without.
All right. Last bit of feedback so that we can get to our interview with Yulai Klass. It was really long. Those last 2 episodes were unnecessarily long. I know I said that before. And again, I'm going to sit there and preface it by saying, though, I actually think Stranger Things 4 was excellent. It was excellent TV. So I'm not like, oh, it ruined the whole season for me. But I would sit there and say, next time, it doesn't need to be 2.5 hours. Literally could have been 2 hours. A lot of these episodes, I could just skip ahead. I just skipped ahead and I didn't miss anything, like literally nothing. Nor did I miss. I know in some cases you're trying to pace things so that, when something happens, it's like, it's a Erin's watching it right now. She's catching up behind the scenes. But how could she do 2 things at once? I don't know.
She's an engineer extraordinaire.
I will say this: the Duffer Brothers, because it's successful, and everything is successful, they can, from a Netflix standpoint, can do no wrong. But when I read articles that say, it crossed the 1,000,000th hour mark, it's like, well, yeah, that thing was 2.5 hours. It didn't need to be 2.5 hours. It was.
If it crossed the 1,000,000,000 hour mark, then yeah, it did.
It was.
Of course, they're sitting there like everything we did is justified now because we did it.
That's true.
So
that's true. Well, you get through it, but I mean,
the critics.
Does it count? Does it count when I skip ahead?
I disagree with this, right? Because I've been criticizing the scant content that we've been getting since the start. So no, heck no. I will tentatively agree with you on this, on the fact that I think the pacing in those episodes, you could feel the pacing in the last episode, that 2.5 hour episode, and so it seemed like it was being stretched a little bit.
Yeah. Overindulgent.
So I think if you cut the pacing differently, I wouldn't have minded the 2.5. I didn't mind the 2.5 hours at all, period.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just cut the pacing, or hasten the pacing a little bit, there are certain things where you look at it and you're like, especially like the last season of Game of Thrones, there were a bunch of editing things where I am not an editor. I've never been a film editor. I've never learned how to edit film. So look, take it with a grain of salt. But I've seen things and I'm like, why did they do that? Like, you could have easily done this and you would have conveyed the same amount of information, yet you wouldn't have added this extra beat that people will give people cause to question you. Like very famously, that episode where they went beyond the wall to get a white, right? And then they expect us to believe that Gendry ran all the way back to the wall, and then they sent a raven all the way to Daenerys, and then she flew a dragon all the way in, and then used her GPS to find them so that she could save them. I'm like, why wouldn't you just said that she's at the boats and she's going to wait at the boats? And then why would you show them wandering all this while to imply the distance?
Right.
And so that when Gendry ran back, we would have no idea how far he had to run.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have already known she's at the wall and she can fly.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, but for some reason they cut it the way they cut it, and it gave you cause to question it.
Yes.
There are ways that you can cut things where it's like you can have the same information there, you can have all the same beats, but I don't have to question you.
Correct.
And I don't know why some people make the decisions that they do. But I'm not an editor, like I said. So I mean, there may be perfectly logical reasons why they have to do those things. I have no idea.
We'll talk more about Stranger Things 4, I'm sure, in future Rogue reactions. There's lots of stuff, and a lot of really great TV in general, and we'll definitely talk about that further in future episodes. But coming up next, we've got actress Yulai Klass. Check her out. This is a great interview. She was real delight to have, and she actually has a really, really amazing resume on film. So Yulai Klass coming up. next. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I am thrilled to be joined by actress Yulai Klass. Yulia, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great that I didn't butcher your name. I butcher everyone's name. You go back to our back catalog. I got everyone's name wrong, but yours, I think I did pretty good there.
Because you like me, that's why. Because I'm nice.
That's it, exactly, right? I butcher Hassan's name every day, and he doesn't get the hint yet.
Hassan's name is easy.
So Yulia, you have an impressive track record of films. You start opposite Bruce Willis, Steven Segal, Jason Momoa, Danny Trejo, Bruce Davison in your latest film, which is The Captors. Talk to us about just your career in general and what it feels like to take the screen opposite, these action legends.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It always feels exciting, first of all, that you get to work with some of those legends, the ones that you listed earlier. And, you get to learn a lot of things from them. You get to absorb their knowledge, their expertise in acting world and show business in general. But yeah, it's always rewarding experience, to work with experienced actors and some of like Bruce Davison, he's an amazing legend and he's just a wonderful actor. So obviously, whenever I get a chance to learn as much as I can, I absorb it and I learn it and I take the most out of this experience.
So Bruce Davison is in the new film, The Captors. That's your latest film. What's it? A lot of what I got to see in the trailer is it's him opposite you in like a video camera Zoom. So it's almost very 2022 in the fact that everyone's on Zoom. How was it? How did it feel to act? Opposite like someone on camera? Was it harder? Was it did it challenge you at all or?
It's not like Zoom, because she basically barely has any power. She's using generator to play a VHS that he left for her. So it's like old school type of, virtual interaction. But yeah, it's a creepy movie. Definitely. There is, it's inspired by true events. It's about centers of woman who is sex trafficked into this country. And she's bought by a serial killer on a ship.
Okay.
It's not, we don't really show it, but, we explain to the audience that's how she got here. And so the serial killer buys her and obviously, rapes her and, about, to kill her, I guess. And like all the other girls. And then she escapes as a kid and then she hides and lives basically exists for 10 years by blocking all of her memories. She's poor. She doesn't have means, to live. And, she's afraid of people in general and barely has any money. So all of a sudden she receives a letter from a lawyer that she never met that tells her that she has an uncle apparently who just passed away. And he hired a private investigator, to locate her, to let her know that she just inherited a house in Michigan. And the thing is she has to travel there within 3 days and to claim the estate. She doesn't have any money to travel. Now she has to find ways to do this. And then she gets there and that's where all the creepy stuff starts happening. And
it looked definitely creepy. I'm not going to lie. It was definitely very, horror movie-esque. Do you enjoy acting in horror films? Is that something that kind of like, I know some actors and actresses, they love it, or they actually go, you know what? I've never watched a horror movie in my entire life.
So I love horror movies in general, but this one in particularly, it's more psychological thriller horror. So there are a lot of horror elements in it for sure. Especially as the movie is escalating and going, moving toward the end. And there's so much of psychological elements in it. so much creepiness, and a lot of it is of course is coming out from her being a victim of the sex trafficking, and all the because she was captive for so many years, in this house. It turns out later that she's being lured back into the same place from which she escaped years ago.
Oh,
and
wow.
She didn't know that originally.
Yeah.
So now she has to relive all of these memories, and some of the things that she's going through, we don't know if this is now what happened before, and this is just
cool.
hallucinations, or it's actually someone is there and they're messing with her.
Wow.
And so it's pretty intense, so you have to watch it. You can't miss, you have to start it from the beginning, you can't just like jump that. But yeah, it's in my opinion, it's pretty intense and powerful story.
How did it feel for you as an actress to play such? There's so much there to work with, but that kind of stuff. I know I've listened to a lot of actors and they talk about it. Really, it hits them when they play traumatic characters like this. How did it feel for you in the intensity?
So one of the reasons why I was so drawn to this script is because of the intensity of it, and the fact that it's not your usual film where you shoot, scenes with another actor or actors, right? So this is literally pretty much all scenes are carried by one character. It's on you, and I have to do everything in my power to make sure that I deliver it with my emotions. And the camera work is amazing. The DP, Dave Newbert, did a great job. The lighting is amazing. James Brass, like the director, he had to come up with all of those angles where where he's going to be shooting. And, as the movie is escalating, we have this big transition in lighting there, and you can see when the hallucinations start and all this weird stuff starts happening, we change the lighting. So for me as an actor, the more challenging, the more drawn I am to it,
Yeah. Well, take us back to the beginning. How did you get started in acting, and what was your big break?
So I started as most kids start, in their houses. You sing, you dance, you you do all kinds of things. And then, my sister, she's a few years older. She started putting together, like neighborhood plays, and she elected herself as a casting director, I guess, or director of like all those plays. So she would be like, okay, you're going to play this role, you're going to play that role. And we were all little kids there, and so I got to play a tree. I got to play like all kinds of things, very important background roles. And I never got like very important roles. Then, kindergarten, then, preschool, then the middle school. Every time there would be some, artistic performances involved, I'll be there, I'll be participating. And so that's where my love for acting and singing developed. And then as I grew older, I started recording songs. I back in Uzbekistan, I had a record deal with a local recording studio there. My songs were actually playing on the radio.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, hey, but I want to be in movies. I want to do this. And so when I came to
wait, I gotta interrupt you because as a career musician, one of the dreams is to hear your songs on the radio. How did that feel?
It felt great. I was super young, but my father never wanted me to be in it, so I had to kind of not kind of stop it for a second there. So that's why when I came to America, I was like, I have freedom now to do a lot of things. And then I got drawn to acting so much, and I started working as a background actor in a few projects, just to kind of get a vibe, because people gave me advice. They said, if you really, really want to understand, this business, before you jump all in it and you start looking for an agent and all of this, why don't you connect with a few background agencies and you do a couple of background roles? So that's how I started. I've done featured background extras. I just was like there on the set, absorbing everything and watching, everybody working, how the director works. It was fascinating to me because some of them were big productions, and it's like, wow, that's fascinating. So then, you get an agent, then you start going to auditions, and then you meet directors, you start networking, and a lot of this right now, it's through social media, we get to meet so many people. It's amazing, So some of the jobs, I just got on my own. I write, I'm very participatory. So I, whatever comes my way, I try to explore it further. And from little roles to slightly bigger roles. Then I started exploring myself as a producer. So I started helping on the set and helped co-produce Sugar Mountain, and that's how it went further and further. And then, I was working with Richard Gray, and he's like, once we finish Sugar Mountain, we have to, since we're in Alaska, we have to shoot this Cold War there. So we prepared for a while. That was a short film with Robert Patrick.
Yep.
And it's basically it's a preparation for our feature film. We created it, that is still in works. But we went through so many film festivals with Cold War, got a lot of positive attention. And, that's how it basically starts. One thing leads to another. And then you get like to see a little bit bigger roles, a little bit bigger scripts. Of course, I haven't made it yet. I'm still working on getting further and further in my career, but it's all good.
Well, you've definitely made it a lot further than I think a lot of folks can say, right? I mean, that's got to count for something.
Yeah, I'm not discrediting anything I have achieved, but I'm saying, as human beings, we evolve all the time, and
absolutely,
by no means I consider myself, up there in any shape or form. So I'm definitely working hard to get better as an actor. And one day I'm dreaming of being a director. I have several stories in mind and several screenplays I'm working on right now. So hopefully one day.
You're hungry. You're still hungry. That's good.
I'm hungry. Always.
That's fantastic. No, I love it. I love it. So out of the folks that you've been on screen with, what did you learn exactly? Like Jason Momoa, you were in a film called Sugar Mountain movie, Sugar Mountain with him.
That's the one that I co-produced. Yep. I'm in it too. And Jason was there only for like 3-4 days in Alaska, and that was before Aquaman, before his big.
I was just about to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like this very tall, muscled guy, comes in. Everybody's like, oh, Jason Momoa is here. This is so awesome. So I was really happy to meet him because he's just like amazing person, amazing actor. And, his facial expressions, everything about him is just fascinating. And so he ended up being like the sweetest guy on the planet. He was nice and kind to every single person on the set. Then, we were every Saturday and Friday, our director and the crew, we would be like in local bars in Seward, watching our dailies that were shot throughout the week, footage, doing the footage with locals. He was sharing the footage with locals. And one of the weekends, Jason was there with his people, and he was just fun. He was dancing with us. He was, like having fun. It was, you would never even think that we were in Alaska Seward based on the environment that was inside of the bar, we had a live DJ, everything was fun. But
that's
of
amazing.
course, you get to watch them act, when the scenes are being shot. And you're, in the Sugar Mountain, you can see Jason in a little bit different, from a different perspective. Like he's he's playing a little bit different role from other roles that he's ever played.
Carrie Yules is in that as well too.
Yes, Carrie Yules.
I mean, that's I mean that takes me back to Princess Bride. That's the first. I was going to ask, are you a big fan of his as well?
Actor. He's great. Yeah. Carrie's an amazing actor, a very friendly guy. He did a great job, with his role. And of course, I observe everybody. Like I said, I watch people. Like I always pay attention to how they interact with the crew and cast. And some people, sometimes you work with some people and you've seen some people on the set where they're so snobby because they think that they're so big. But so far I've been fortunate and lucky to only interact and work with really, really nice people. I was blessed in that department.
It's amazing. You mentioned you want to direct at some point, but what is some more what kind of genres would you like to be in now? Obviously, Captors
completely different from anything I've ever done. The only thing that I've done similar is the Cold War short, and this is a prelude to a feature film screenplay. Not the one that I will be directing, but it will be something in that genre, World War II, Cold War era. Okay. I just like that era, and I want to tell more stories about the World War II for sure.
Okay, so are you a history fan, or just that particular area?
That I'm not a big history buff by no means, but I am very interested in the World War II specific period, because both of my grandparents, on both sides, actually, my mom's and my dad's, they all were in the war, and my grandfather was injured 3 times, and I heard a lot of stories from my grandmothers, like I heard so many things that I want to tell some of those stories.
Amazing. We talked off air about this. I thought it was a very controversial, but I agree with you statement. Universal Studios over Disney World.
Yes, that's my choice. Yeah. Even though I do like Disney World, Disneyland.
Who doesn't like Disney World? But Universal, I went to both, and I got to tell you, I agree with you 100%. I got 100%. Universal Studios Universal was much more enjoyable for some reason.
Yeah, I in Florida, for example, I like Islands of Adventures, because they're kind of merged. The two parks are merged, and
now I haven't been to I haven't been to Star Wars Adventures yet. I heard that's
I haven't been there yet. No, I haven't.
All right. Maybe that'll collectively change our minds. Maybe now we'll lean and say, all right, yeah, maybe Disney gets the nod now because it has the Star Wars.
Yeah, but it's like going to these theme parks in general for me and for a lot of people. Why do we love it so much? Is because when we get there, we feel like we're kids again, and it's just a different, like it takes our mind away from the horrible realities sometimes, or boring day, or just everyday life. And it's like movies. When we watch movies, why do we like movies? Why do we like certain genres? Is because it takes our mind away from what we're doing right now, right?
Yep.
So I guess we are all kids a little bit inside, and we're all dreamers, right? And that's why we like that stuff.
That's amazing. So tell folks where they can consume Captors, and go ahead.
Yeah, so Captors are Captors movies available on all major VOD platforms, Apple, Amazon, Hulu, YouTube, etc. And then you can always get the information, or if you want to look at some behind the scenes pictures, you can go to captorsmovie.com, and you can always, check out our photos there.
Very cool. And where can people find you?
You can find me in the mall. You can find me, I'm just kidding. You can find me at official Yulai Klass on Instagram and Twitter.
Absolutely amazing. Yulia, it's been an absolute delight having you. Go check out Captors movie. And next time you have something going on, we'd love to have you back on as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
This has been Rogue Wave. When we come back, we'll put a bow on tonight's episode. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I want to thank Yulai Klass for joining us. I had a great interview with her, so that was a lot of fun. And thank you to Hassan, and thank you to Aaron for managing to cover your ears and eyes and not get spoiler things.
We ruined it for her, but
for her potentially.
She knew the job was dangerous when she took it.
Real quick before we cut out of here, Umbrella Academy or Stranger Things 4?
Both.
I'm
not a binary
Umbrella
person.
Academy was my favorite.
I don't do binary.
I finished that up. And you know what? I had the choice. I was running the risk of not completing Stranger Things 4 before the episode, but I had to finish Umbrella Academy. That's how much I enjoyed that show.
I enjoyed both of them. We've got full content.
I know.
We've got a lot of things going. I don't know why people are like, which one do you think was your best one? Like, F you. I like them all.
I go Umbrella Academy. I'm actually going to start rereading the comics now too, because I'm definitely I'm intrigued.
Very different experience.
All right, I'm excited. I'll let you know all about that next week. We've got Thor: Love and Thunder. Is this the first Marvel misstep? Because I've seen some reviews. Some people love it, some people not so much. It's gonna be very interesting. We will dive into Thor: Love and Thunder. We've also got the next edition of Seal of Fire coming up next week, and I'm sure some sort of news that we can react to. We will see you guys next week. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast.